Okay. So now we seem to be also live on Facebook. Okay, are we good to go?
Hi. I think that idea is not correct. Okay, let me. Just text it, then I see. Okay, I'll do that.
Team, are we good?
We are good.
Okay. Then we can people come in, but I would start and I would. Everybody, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends of CAS and of good political discussions. I would like to welcome you to our new series of virtual panel discussions that you would find from now on every Monday at 6 p.m. on this channel. And that means on Zoom, on Facebook, and also on Twitter. And we hope to offer some quality political discussions in time of Corona. And we hope that at least for this 1 or 2 hours, we can convince you to let Netflix have a break and discuss about something that concerns politics. I am Dr. Jan Czarnicki. I'm the director of Konrad Adenauer Stiftung in Kenya. We are a political foundation from Germany, and our main aim is to support democracy all over the world with about 100 offices we're having in most countries in the world. Our understanding of democracy is that as many people as possible can participate in decision-making processes. And that leads me to the topic of today, which is mentorship. Our understanding here, mentorship is not only that mentorship would be a form of forming new leaders, but the idea is also to have experienced people, the mentors, that help others to understand how to be part of a democratic process and how to influence decisions on the local level. So our aim would be that the mentors help the normal people on the ground, not only to ask for favors of the local MP or MCA, but to have the means and the resources to be active on their own. And we at CAS support these processes with different programs. And we have, for example, an own mentorship program. One of our mentors is here today, which is Arnold Maliba, who can, I think, hopefully tell us something about how mentorship in CAS works. And yeah, our main aim, as I said, is to make it possible that many people can participate in democratic processes. And the understanding is also to influence local things. So democracy may not only be what happens in parliament, but what also happens in the local level if you want to have better roads, better roof for the school, or other means to influence what happens on the ground. That's what we will discuss today. And yes, without further ado, I would invite our moderator, Kimber Kamencho, to help us and to lead us through the day and to start the discussion. Welcome, everybody, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Jan, and hello, everyone. So I see that we have been joined. All right, I think I'm no longer muted. So hi, everyone, and welcome to this discussion. So I see that we have some of the members, Eric, Caroline, Ruth, Kiprotich, as well as others that are on Facebook. So as Dr. Jan has mentioned, we're talking about mentorship today, and it would be interesting to also look at mentorship in the context of crisis. One would say that Kenya, Africa, we're in a continual political crisis, but then right now we are in this time of what's been happening with the Corona situation. So we are joined by, we have 3 panelists, and Marianne Mugo. We have Marianne Mugo who's with us here. And we also have Arnold Maliba, And we also have Miley Odimbo. Milly's been having some problems in terms of some technical problems joining in, but we hope that she catches up with us along the way. Oh, I see Milly. Hello, Milly. So I'll just start by introducing them. I will start by introducing Arnold, and I know all of them informally and formally, and the reason we got them is that because they're people with strong leadership credentials in terms of principle, in terms of character, and they're people that really have their heads on their shoulders. So maybe I'll say something small about Arnold. Arnold is a public policy analyst and a youth resource person with a background in leadership and management. He has vast experience and competencies acquired from both private and public sectors. He has worked as a journalist, an elected member to the Kenya National Youth Council, representing Nairobi region. Maliba has also served as a national chair of the TNA Youth League, manager of programs, partnerships at Emerging Leaders Foundation, and has worked as a parliamentary aide. He currently runs the Open Future Hub, a futures incubation platform concerning itself with open markets, open government, and open progress. He writes and does television commentary on politics and policy. Like I mentioned, I know Maliba from the previous, some past elections where he ran for the Nairobi, he ran on the Nairobi, for a seat on the Nairobi county government. And then just to say a little bit about Marianne Mugo. Marianne, I know her from way back, student politics. Marianne was actually the first female Secretary General at Kenyatta University. I'll just say something about her. So Marianne Mugo is a co-founder and director at Sauti ya Jamii program, an international NGO that empowers the youth and women in East Africa through mentorship and information dissemination. She is a trade expert in East and Central Africa. She's passionate about the people's well-being and on the topic of culture and its role in promoting democracy and good governance in Africa. Marianne holds an MA in International Studies from the University of Nairobi, and her background, she has a BCom marketing option from Kenyatta University, as well as a diploma in Chartered Institute of Marketing. Marianne has held a lot of leadership, has held a lot of leadership roles in the society, in the student sector, in the church sector, at Mamlaka Chapel, and she was also in terms of community work. She did a lot in terms of raising funds for the IDPs in Maimahio, and a lot of other programs. So Marianne's passion, love for the community, and a strong commitment towards transformative leadership drove her to run for the MP Molo constituency in 2017. Her faith in possibilities, Her faith in possibilities is the key to her dream. And I just want to mute this. And I will attest to that because I've seen how much she's driven by ideals and really just trying to stand for something different. And then I will now introduce Milly Odimbo, who a lot of you know as Milly Mabona or Milly Odimbo. And she is a Kenyan politician, originally trained as a lawyer and has been a member of parliament since 2008. She was first nominated and later elected as a member of Bita constituency, now Suba North constituency. And she has been in civil society where she was the founder and director of the Cradle Children's Foundation. And she is really a woman that has been on the front line in terms of just pushing for freedoms, pushing for humanity, and that's why we're very, very happy to have her here with us. So karibuni sana, Marianne, Arnold, and Milly. And then I also should mention Christoph, although I don't know so much about his background, but he's new to Conrad. And he has joined in the management capacity, and he's also a member of the political party, and he'll also be sharing some perspectives in terms of mentorship from what they've been doing in their party in Germany. So welcome everyone. And so now I'll now give the floor or the online space to Arnold Maliba to tell us something about what he has been doing, to give an overview of the CAS mentorship program. What does it envision? Has it been successful? And just to talk about that. And also, before Maliba comes on board, I'd also like to ask everyone to go on Twitter, have Twitter and on the hashtag Rethinking Democracy, and just talk about it and share the insights that you're learning so that others might also be part of the program. So Karibu Maliba.
Thanks so much, Kingwa. Like Kingwa has already done, and I think eloquently well, she's done an introduction of all of us. Speaking of things probably some of us do not know about ourselves. So quickly to just probably give an overview of the mentorship we have been doing with Conrad in Kenya is that for the last 2 years, Conrad has been running actually a political leadership development program, but literally given to mentorship as a strategy, where they identify a few young people, upcoming politicians, who in their own rights are doing something in their spaces. Then those young people are empowered, they are trained. Together, we have developed a manual for training upcoming politicians, and they're allowed to go to the ground, recruit interested young people who want to be part and parcel of the political processes. And we are not just looking at politicians in the basic, or rather in the simple sense that politicians should be people who vary. But then the mentorship program brings on board everyone who is interested to be part and parcel of the political process. People who want to work for campaigns, who want to support others, people who want to run. So for the last 2 years, we have done that. And we are doing that. We are about 30 mentors across the country today, spread across different places in Kenya. We go on the ground. Like, for example, I do it in Kakamega. I've been doing it. This is the second, actually the third class I'm running. That in 2018, 2019, and this is 2020, we have got the third class in 2020. So in Kakamega, what I do is that I call out for young people who are interested to be part and parcel of the political processes. And I've been lucky because in Kakamega, there are about 3 universities. So largely I have been taking, or rather recruiting, my mentees from the colleges. This is essentially to give young people a hands-on approach where they not only learn about the political processes, things like the budget cycle, a policy cycle, the legislative cycle, how you can actually engage the leadership, especially at the county level. And largely we focus on the county level because at that particular level, that is the government level that is actually very close to people. So we bring up those young people, and then they come up with their own solutions and means and ways of actually engaging the county government. And I've seen actually the program grow. And like this year, for example, when we put out a call for young people who wanted to be part and parcel of this process, we actually had much more numbers than we could actually, because we were only looking for 15. We had about 50 applicants. And I know that is the experience with each and every one of the mentors we have in the program. They're all sharing about people wanting to be part and parcel of this program, but then you only have got enough slots available. Primarily, probably that is where mentorship for us and CAS has been. Just picking young people, training them. We have got resource material. You go to the ground, train them. They come up with local solutions on how they will actually do, or rather reach out to the county government and they engage. They come up with a program of their own. And for me, it's working. I think today I would say comfortably that I've got at least 50 mentees who actually have gone through the program so far. And in their own ways, they are doing their own things in their own spaces. And I hope that when we have got the next election, we'll actually have a lot of them run.
So that's really good to hear. And about how many in total mentees have been mentored since the program began? I know you mentioned that under you there's been 50, more than 50. What about in total all around the country? Around how many?
We actually should be talking about at least 200 going up in the last 3 intakes we've actually had, because for about the 30 of us, the minimum we take is about 15. So
Okay.
you multiply that, and we have got, for the last 3 rounds we've run, we should be having at least 200 mentored young people, and we allow them to actually do things the way they would actually want. But then, of course, we equip them and tool them with the necessities they need to actually go out there and actually become a proper community leaders, people who are politically aware, politically woke, not just going around and not understanding when the budget should be done. You don't know how a policy is done. You don't know how laws are done, when to come in, the budget cycle, so that you know exactly when to lobby and come in. So I would say roughly we've got about 200 today. But I will speak to my job and actually find out the entire number. But I'm working with the rough, the minimum number each of us is actually allowed to bring on board, 15 for each and every one of us. And we've done that 3 times.
All right, that's really fascinating and very inspiring to hear. And you'll probably also let us know, or particularly for the participants who'd be interested in getting to be part of the program, because I know a lot of people do. We could then also let them know how they could join, probably as we wrap up to the end. For now, I'd like to bring in Millie. I'd like to bring in, hello, Millie. I need to unmute.
Hello.
Oh, hi, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
Very well, thanks. We're happy to have you here with us.
Thank you.
And one of the reasons that we thought you'd have was that we thought that you could add value was because of you yourself have been in the civil society space.
Yes.
Understand a lot of concepts that, and mentorship is a concept that is sort of, it's not very, especially in our political space, it's not very much entrenched. So it'd be interesting to hear your own experience as someone who's in politics right now. And the question I'd probably put to you is, to what extent do you think mentorship is important, first? And number 2, why is mentorship missing from our political space? And you feel free to correct me if I'm wrong about that. Maybe it's an assumption that I'm making.
Well, if I get you right, you're asking me whether mentorship is right in the political space?
Like, how important is it? And maybe we could also hear your own experience. Have you been mentored by any key people, or what has your experience been?
Well, of course, mentorship is very important because if a lot of people I see a lot of young people who get into politics without mentorship are not able to make headways.
Yes.
Because politics is very difficult. It's a very difficult terrain.
Yes.
It's a very unique terrain.
Yes.
With its own unique challenges, sort of like COVID-19. And unless somebody holds your hands and helps you navigate, then it becomes very, very difficult, especially for women.
Yes.
Speaking of my own experience, I worked very closely with my former member of parliament, the late Otieno Kajwang.
Okay.
But I also worked with several women members of parliament like Honorable Martha Karua,
okay.
Honorable Charity Ngilu, and many other women who were in that political space before. And their own experiences, kind of helped me when I was going for my own elective position.
Okay. Hello.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And is from your experience within the party space, is mentorship something that has been structured within the party, or does it more happen informally with ODM? Hello. Hello.
Engage with, but I wouldn't say that you have a very good and structured mentorship program in the parties, because a good mentorship program would go out to look for people,
yes,
train people,
yes,
handhold. But then for a lot of people, for a lot of parties, they expect you to join the party and kind of wiggle your way inside while you are inside the party.
yes.
So I think, well, a lot of our parties are trying. And even if you look at the history of most of our party leaders have been around for long, but most of our parties are in reality fairly young parties. They are not very old parties, other than KANU. But most of the parties are fairly young parties.
Yeah.
So they are building structures, they are building studying our histories. So that is something that most of our parties can still work very hard on.
Okay, that's very interesting, and that's a challenge now for the political parties, and I think we're going to share this discussion with them after as something to think about, maybe for those who don't have. So thank you for sharing your thoughts.
Hello.
Mheshimiwa. I'm going to now bring in Marianne. And so I'm going to ask, I know Marianne has been in the political space as a student leader, as in active politics herself, having run in Molo, and maybe also in KANU.
Before Marianne comes.
Yeah. Go ahead. Hello. Hello. Hello, Millie. Hello, Millie. Okay, I think we'll just go back to, we'll go to Marianne, and we'll come back to Millie. Christoph, is it possible to unmute Marianne?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. So for you, it would be interesting to hear, yes, about your experience. Have you been mentored? How important has that been to you from when you started out and your journey till now? How has your experience been?
Okay, thank you so much, Kingwa, and thank you, team, and to Kaz for giving us an opportunity to speak. First, I would want to commend Arnold for what he's doing, and I think it's good because for me, it was a gap. I thought I was mentored, but when I went to the national arena, like Mheshimiwa said, it became a different ballgame. Kingwa, you'd remember our days in university politics. Actually, I wasn't the first Secretary General, female Secretary General. I was the second. The first KU female Sec Gen was Gladys Wanga. We used to call her Honorable Gladys Wanga. We used to call her Honorable Gladys Nyasuna. So yeah, I was the second. And the experience there was easy compared to what I found in the national arena. And my experience is that I actually was under the impression that I was actually mentored. And that had a great undoing to me, because I would say that some of the experiences that I went through were kind of traumatic. And I think a lot of politicians don't talk about it, especially the ones who lose. And so I cannot underscore how important mentorship is. And maybe at this point, I'll just mention that one of my very good friends and a co-founder of Sauti ya Jamii had asked me to reach out to Honorable Miley. She found out that she had a mentorship program for young women who wanted to run for office. And I never got a chance to that. I got a chance to speak to Mheshimiwa Cecily Mbarire, and of course, my friend and brother, Senator Isaac Mora. And because most people, maybe I did it a little late, so most people maybe had a lot going on around them. So I didn't get a lot of support in that. And when the political pace picked up, it was not the right time to get information. But why I say I thought I was mentored, to just go back to that point, is that I had attended a lot of organizations, meetings, institutions like that promote democracy and support women in leadership. And I actually thought in my head that I had gotten what it takes, but I think the gap was not so much about what those institutions do, but talking to a person who's done it, ran for office, and genuinely let them tell you what it takes, what to expect. Because I think my experience is that I learned, unfortunately, there are currencies that work in politics and may not be your normal way. As Mheshimiwa said, it's a very interesting environment with very unique challenges. And then I came to learn that you have to be able to, for people like who believe in servant leadership, you had to be able to fight and navigate and more so stand by your values and principles. And sometimes those don't work very well to support your career and agenda. And there was a lot of confusion for me. And that's why I've taken up upon myself to guide anyone, young, especially young women and even young men who want to go to politics, to tell them what to expect, to tell them how to pace themselves. That, for example, it is a logistical nightmare when it comes to resources and financial for that matter, that you will not have a lot of hope expecting the people to maybe believe in your agenda, because it has to, you have to face the reality that the people in this country, there's a culture of money that you have to speak to people about and tell them, find an edge that you can sell yourself and expect not always to win when you think you have what it takes to be a leader, and you even maybe have past experience and you've done very well. You have a good track record and you think that will sell for you. There's a lot of dynamics. It's a myriad of things that will help you bring it home. And I think for me, I've been taking that up. Like the other day, I got a person who wants to run for Member of Parliament in Joro. And he came to me and he told me, we used to be together in campus, that he wants to know what to expect. And I take them through. So I get a lot of that. And maybe for me, it's because I love telling stories. And Kingo, I've told you my stories. I think I tell everybody stories. Ugly, beautiful, painful. I like telling stories and I like telling them the way they are. So people maybe feel I'm open to telling them the facts and the reality. I don't want to show this side of how strong we are as politicians, that we don't get wounded by these experiences. We actually get to. So mentorship is actually paramount. It is important. It's everything if our political culture will change in our political situation. And you might have in future, maybe we'll talk about it later, not only for the leaders, but also for the people, which is now people, what we call civil education. So it's a big deal. So maybe we might even have to look at it from the opinion shapers, so that whenever you bring it together, it is not just the one-sided, the politicians, but also the people on the ground are more receptive to you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Mary. And that was so powerful. I think it really grounded us, especially the issue that the fact that our politics is the idea of values and principles, people with values and principles, almost 99% generally tend to do badly. And it's so normalized that in Kenya we laugh at people with ideas, we laugh at people who are going to talk about ideas. Like even when people talk informally, they say, this one doesn't have money, they won't win. Or they'll say, this one has money, atapita. And that's something that we've normalized and we haven't interrogated in it enough. And there's also the very big context of a dehumanized politics that we haven't acknowledged and we have not addressed. And what happens is that when you, as a person with ideals who's about humanity, when you go into the space, first of all, we need to talk about voters on a whole day on itself, because I remember I have friends who've told me that they've gone campaigning in places and people, like, they've been chased away by women and youth because they did not carry money. So there's a way in which it's a very skewed situation right now. It's very toxic, also because the voters have a lot of anger towards the politicians, and I'm sure Millie will tell us more about that. There's a lot of anger, when we read headlines that politicians have money has been stolen by politicians, when we hear that that salaries of politicians have been. So it's a very interesting thing. And I think one of the key things that we need to be talking about is how to dehumanize that. And mentorship is actually one very big way of, because for example, like your story, Marianne, when you told me about this, about getting out, sort of getting on your feet again after the election. I think that's a story that so many of us have gone through. In fact, Cass has actually published an aspirant's book on that. But it's something that if you had a mentor, like in a very conscious way, first of all, they could have told you in advance what to expect, like you said, but also they could have sort of like walked you through the journey of getting back onto your feet. So I thank you so much. Those are really, really powerful points. So I would like to, Christoph, I'd actually like to hear, like, I think it would be interesting to hear now a more global perspective in terms of how does mentorship work in your party, and is it mainstreamed or what happens, and just really your observations on all that, on how useful it is for the leadership and also for the individual.
Yeah. Thank you, Kingwa. Good evening, everybody. Nice to have you here, virtually at least. Yeah, so in Germany, I've become a party member in Germany about 10 years ago, when I was still rather young. And obviously, when you're in such a young age, you get into a new environment. It's a very challenging environment. It's politics. Then, of course, you have to have people around you who show you how to deal with it. I was very lucky to have had such people, and then actually I got the very big privilege to become a scholar with the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung when I was a student. And maybe elaborate a bit on that, because many of our leaders today have gone through that scholarship program that we have in Germany. And let me mention a few words about the origin of our wonderful organization, which was after World War II. We have seen that in the time before, after the First World War, we had a first official democracy, a democratic constitution in Germany, known as the Weimar Republic today. But it just took 15 years until the very opposite happened, and we became Nazi Germany, and then World War II and Holocaust and all those horrible, horrible things happened. So after that, we said, no, we have to become a true democracy, and it takes more than just have it written on a piece of paper in the constitution. But a democracy needs Democrats. And because we are not born as Democrats, we have to become Democrats, and have to develop a democratic conviction, a democratic ethic. So the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung in Germany was initially founded as a means of political education, especially for students, to become mentored, and it developed more and more over the years. We don't only need leaders in politics, we also need them in the economy, We need them. We see right now in hospitals. 2 weeks ago, we had this same event with Dr. Maxwell Okoth, and we saw how important leadership is and can be, and also how he was inspired to do that. And now, after going through that scholarship program and being engaged in politics still, and in society, the mentorship isn't really about teaching people, but more about inspiring them to develop a conviction, a firm basis of belief. So to say, what would Konrad Adenauer do? If I today have a decision to make, what would my mentor, if it wasn't him personally, but his mind and his spirit that inspired us. When he was chancellor after World War II, the challenges were manifold. The economy was in scatters. Germany was internationally isolated. It was even divided, with the GDR. The Cold War was there, and all those challenges. And Konrad Adenauer, he made decisions out of a conviction, on which we founded the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung then, about proximity to France, European integration. He laid the foundation of what today is the European Union. He introduced or manifested the idea of the social market economy, which is the basis of most of our wealth today. And so looking for inspiration, it's just that's what the mentorship is mostly about. Finding your own conviction in challenging times, which we are in right now, and see where will that take us, just as Konrad Adenauer did earlier. And another very important aspect is to see that you cannot achieve much alone, but you need cooperation, you need a network to achieve. And that's another aspect of Konrad Adenauer Stiftung still today. That's what we all know. Most of our work is bringing great minds together to achieve something great, and being just a platform for discussion, and also just broadening the mind. So those are the important things about the mentorship program, I think.
Okay, that's very interesting. Thank you for sharing. So I think it would be interesting, Mheshimiwa Milly, it would be interesting to hear your thoughts, actually everyone's thoughts on why do we, first of all, Mheshimiwa, do you think it's important to have mentorship entrenched in our parties? Number one, and number two, what is the reason that mentorship is not such a normal thing in our political parties? Hello. Hello, Mheshimiwa. Milly. Okay, I think there might be that one issues. So I think maybe we'll ask Maliba. Maybe Maliba could say something, because Maliba, you've been with the TNA party and other parties. So what do you think?
Hello.
Okay, yes, good that we have you here. Hello. Hello. Hello, Milly.
Yes, I didn't get your question.
Okay. To what extent do you think we need to have? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello. Yeah.
Yes.
To what extent do you think it's okay? First of all, to what extent is mentorship present in our existing political parties from your perspective?
Yes.
to what extent is mentorship present?
Well, I think in our political parties, there is not what I would call very deliberative mentorship.
Okay.
It's sort of like the mentorship that Marianne talks about. That we do trainings.
Mm-hmm.
We do trainings for people as parties. And, you know, when people come in, we learn from the older people who are there.
Mm-hmm.
Or the people who have been there a while.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of having a structured mentorship program in parties,
mm-hmm.
I would say that is actually, I wouldn't say that it's actually there. There's some form of mentorship that then would come with the partners. But I'm yet to see, you know, like our parties across the board,
yes,
having a very clear mentorship program where they can say that, you know, our mentorship entails this and entails that this is stage 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 of our mentorship.
Wow.
That does not exist in most political parties.
And to what extent, okay, because let's talk about the structure of our political parties and the structure of our politics, which is very much money driven. Where
Yes.
we hear about people simply paying money, like sort of like buying political seats. So to what extent is that fact of sort of an absence of mentorship, to what extent is it related to the very, what Marianne talked about, the very transactional, and it's even beyond transactional, it's almost, you know, that very money-driven nature of our politics. To what extent, like what is the relationship?
Transactional.
Yes, transactional and almost like it's all about
what
the
I
money.
can say. Well, like I wish I was actually stationary so that I would be able to talk a little more. But what I can say is that by the very nature of Kenyan politics, right from the grassroots to the top,
yes,
Kenyans themselves have made politics very transactional.
Yes.
So when you get into politics, the people you represent expect you to have like a very large sum of money.
Yes.
And a lot of good leaders then fall by the way because they don't have that kind of money.
Yes. Yes.
So, but what I can say is that what mentorship helps is that because when you work with people who've been there before, then you can get to learn some of the things that may compensate for the lack of money.
Wow.
I can't tell you can come out and have absolutely no money, but there are certain things that will compensate that transactional nature of politics, because assuming everybody is transactional, there must be an edge above that transactional nature. There must be something that you offer above that transactional nature of politics. And I think mentorship is very, very core in enabling, especially women, if you ask me, learn the ropes. Like, for instance, I can tell you when you're a woman, invest in women. Women as voters tend to be more faithful and more loyal and more trustworthy than the male counterparts. Now, if you have not engaged in mentorship, it's very difficult for you to know that.
Wow.
The other kind of thing that you are likely to learn is don't invest too much too early, because people tend to forget. So you must also know your timing. And then you must know who you contact because of the transactional nature of politics. I can tell you my first entry into politics. I went to the ground and I was going to meet people in some ward. And then before I could reach there, I don't even reach the constituency. Some people stopped me in a neighboring constituency. And all I know is I sat there from about 12 noon to 6 a.m. in the morning. And by the time I was done, everybody wanted money to sleep, money for dinner, and all manner of allowances. So whatever I was going down to the ground with, I basically ran out with, I came back with no money. I came back to Nairobi without reaching the constituency.
Wow.
But then after that, people taught me that you must learn to break that sort of layer and go directly to the ground. And that's what I did. Wow. I went directly and I talked to women, I talked to youth, I went to the churches. So yeah, there are things that can compensate that. Okay. And if you don't mind,
sure.
Because I'm still very many hours away from where I'm going, and with the curfew, I'll request to probably I might go. I'll try and keep up, but if you don't see me anymore, I would have gone off air.
Okay. Will you join?
It's a very interesting conversation. I hope we get to talk again another time.
Yes, and also
keeping
to
on because I keep getting off network.
Okay, all right. So sure, then you could just join in once you get to a place with better network. But
thank you.
Yeah, but in the meantime, you just listen in and actually you don't have to go off. Just sort of because now for the participants, Millie is traveling. So just keep it on, and then when you get to a place of no network, if you do, we'll know. But in the meantime, we'll just keep on engaging with you. So thank you for your thoughts, Millie. So now I want to ask now to put this to Arnold, because I really like how Arnold has a very bigger picture understanding of things, and he sees things from a system perspective. So Arnold is. First of all, it'd be interesting to hear about, because I know you talked about CAS and what the program that you're doing in terms of mentorship. But first, would be interested to hear also your own story in terms of mentorship and how it has been of interest, of importance or not in your life. So maybe that to begin with, and then it would be interesting to hear your thoughts on, is mentorship something that our parties should consider mainstreaming?
So thanks for the question. But I'm just so happy because of Heshimiwa Millie. I know for sure that she runs a mentorship program. Unfortunately, it's only for young women who are interested in politics. And therefore, men who might actually benefit from her are actually locked out. But I would understand the dynamics around that. Now, my story around mentorship goes back, way back. And then there are 3 institutions or individuals who, for me, really have done much, or rather brought me here into mentorship. I got into active politics without necessarily having anyone mentoring me. You know, you come out of student politics, you are working, and then I go to the National Youth Council elections. So during that organization, I found my way on the media. And as I engaged and did a number of things, one person who was not known to me at that particular time reached out to me on inbox. Is a guy called Cyprian Nyamwamu. Cyprian Nyamwamu is known among the political circles for quite a while. And he told me that I saw you on television today speak. And I think you are young and you are going to places, but there are things you said that could actually put you in trouble in future. So I am adopting you deliberately. You have not asked me, but I'm bringing you in as my mentee. So I would actually position out, or rather mention out, that Cyprian Nyamwamu picked out. I didn't know him at that particular time, and that is about 10 years ago. So he picks me out and says, you are doing well in the youth advocacy and the spaces you are in, but I would like you to actually be more structured, to understand the processes, to understand the world about governance and the advocacy and everything else. So Cyprian brought me in. I didn't reach out to him. He saw me, he reached out, and if you know him, like most of us do, you realize that he's very resourceful. The other person is a lady called Karen Wakoli. Now, I ran in 2017, and of course, in this country, we make a joke that you don't lose elections. Nikura Wazitoshi. So for Christoph, we are just saying that in this country, you don't lose elections. It's only that your votes are not enough. So the person with enough votes then gets the seat. So in 2017, I ran, and of course, I came a distant second. So as I was trying to measure out what to do, what I need to do, Karen called me and she asked me, you have been in the National Youth Council, you have been quite active within the youth leadership space, and literally a number of young people will look up to you for what you have done. As in, you've been to the National Youth Council at the very top, you have been in the president's party at that particular time, and you became the youth leader of the youth league of that particular party, and you've been running around. What is that one thing that you still have, or rather you feel you have not done during this journey? And I told her that I feel deep down that when I came to the scene, there was no one to hold my hand. And I'm just about to exit the scene, and I do not feel that I have done sufficiently enough to bring on board as many young people into youth leadership, youth advocacy, and youth spaces. And she told me, what if you came and did that at Emerging Leaders Foundation? That's how I ended up at Emerging Leaders Foundation, primarily to deal with partnerships and policy, because that is my business. That is the core business of what I do. So at Emerging Leaders Foundation, I ended up doing partnerships, but then I will later on transition to doing programs. And at Emerging Leaders Foundation, we were purely doing mentorship. That is at the core of the strategy of the organization, is to do mentorship. So we do leadership development, but not principally targeted the way CAS is doing it, because in CAS, we are deliberate. We are dealing with the politicians, not any particular leaders. We're talking about we are mentoring leaders into business, into whatever space they come in. When you come to CAS, you know that our business here is politics, and politics is a big thing. I need to mention out that one of the reasons why we are having this discussion is that during this pandemic, 3 things have stood out. And top of it actually has been political leadership, and then the professional expertise that is needed by the people who actually are intervening and working out. And then lastly is actually the public, or rather the participation of the public in each and everything governments and societies are doing around the world. But one thing that stands out is that political leadership stands out. And we will actually want to look out and say, in such like moments, honestly, you realize that leadership counts. And I think for Americans, for example, if I'm allowed to say this, I think the most important election they had was the last election, not even the next one. Another thing that actually comes out and stands out, if you're going to look at leadership, you will actually realize that countries that are led by women, for example, are doing very well. You look at Germany, for example, literally there's a list of countries that are led by women. And if you look at how they are intervening, or rather how they have dealt with the pandemic, it's so different with the way men are doing it. This is an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to see what you can do. So I was talking about my story. That is how I then would end up at CAS as a partner to work on their mentorship program, but specifically facing the Western Circuit. And here, by the way, we just go out and we recruit young politicians, people who are young and they're interested in politics. We teach them in political knowledge, the tactics, and we have continuously gotten feedback from them, come out with the training manuals, as in it's through you coming from the bottom up, so that the best of politics should come from the ground going up. Because if you look at how our politics are done, it is so much top down, where the people in Nairobi, I'm using Nairobi as the old example, the people at the top then come up with policies on what should be done and what they need to do, and then they tell the people down. That approach has not really worked very well in our politics. And we are thinking that now that with the devolution, if we have got very many political leaders coming from the ground, it will be, it's much better. You actually see effective participation. You see policy interventions, people influencing the policies that actually would then inform budgets and then automatically reflecting in their own lives. I feel, as a person who has been in a political party, has worked within political systems, that mentorship is one thing that we do lack, and especially for young people. I know there's the argument that young people are not easy to mentor. It's not true. Young people are out here looking for mentorship. They're always looking for internship opportunities. They go out as asking. For example, I am unable, honestly, to deal with all the young people I have who would want to become mentors. Every single day, young people asking me, we would like you to mentor us into politics, into youth advocacy. So I think if we made leadership, or rather mentorship, and I'm talking about political mentorship, structured and deliberate, then we are likely to honestly have better leaders. Because sometimes we really complain about the quality of leaders we have, yet no one goes out deliberately to prepare the leaders. So you wonder, where are we going to get good leaders?
Yes. Yeah. Such good points. Thanks, Maliba. So also to our participants, I just want to mention that we haven't forgotten that you're there. There's going to be we are going to get into Q&A very soon. So please feel free to ask questions and give your feedback. We're also going to be reading what you've written, because we want this to be as interactive as possible. So one thing that's coming out from what our panelists is saying is that it appears that it's mostly people who are trying to push for value-based politics that probably need the most mentorship. Because if you're just doing the usual kind of politics of sort of like buying people and everything, you don't really need much hand-holding. Like, it's more of like just mathematical, do this, do that. And I think that is the reason that we have the lack of mentorship in that particular, for those particular types of people, is probably the reason that we have not been doing well. And I want to particularly use the term idealists, people who practice idealist kind of politics, which is something that almost has no ground. It's like, in fact, I'm sure you guys have seen it, a lot of idealists are laughed at to begin with. A lot of idealists are like, they get into the practice, and it leaves them it almost leaves them scarred. If we talk about some of the examples, some of the stories that I've been hearing, some of the discussions we're having with Marianne, my own experience that it's so easy for idealists to get disillusioned by the state of things, because it's a very cynical and very brutal kind of politics. So that's something that's coming out very much. As well as, and it's also interesting what Millie said, that she got in and she has been consistent in her politics thanks to the mentorship of women who've been there. So that's something that for people who are listening in, that would be good to keep in mind, that mentorship is important. It grounds you, it really keeps you even in a way almost accountable, because when you have someone who's looking out for you, in a sense, you're almost reporting back to them because they're asking you, how are you? How is the process going? So it does keep you grounded. So Marianne, I just want to ask something about how do we, because it appears that mentorship is very much, it's a personal relationship, yeah? So it's about being open with your strengths, your weaknesses, your challenges without embarrassment. Yet our politics is very much about facade and chest thumping and power moves and everything. So Marianne, in your view, how do we marry mentorship, which is a practice that's very about, it's almost, there's an issue of vulnerability and sort of like being very open, and it's about relationships. So how do we marry that with the current political state, our current political parties and systems, which are more about money, power, let's steal more. So how do you, in your thoughts, in your view, Marianne, what is the way to marry that? Or maybe is it that actually mentorship might be the answer out of that quagmire that we're in?
Thank you, Kingwa. And I want to say that it's leadership. Why I say that is because if I want to be the change, and as Christoph said it, for them, mentorship is about inspiration. If I want to see change, then I have to lead by example. If we don't do that as leaders today, then we will not move from the culture that we see. And by that, I mean, for example, Marianne went through what she went through. And Marianne is who she is. I'm an idealist. I see the world as it ought to be as opposed to what it is. I believe that people have humanity in them and they can do differently. But I also need to marry that to the fact that I need to remind the people, and I was doing that yesterday in a group that we're in, we discussed moral politics. I told them when the rubber meets the road, they were talking about how people are being frustrated in the quarantine centers. And I told them that when the rubber meets the road, it does not matter how much money an MP or an candidate gave you, or an MC or a governor. It doesn't matter how much you stand in awe of your leader or whoever it is, whether it's a president or whoever it is. What matters is whether the health system works. What matters is whether the roads are good and they will not, allow you, for example, my people in Marioshoni, to be able to move their products from the interior to the roads where they can now sell them to bigger markets. What matters is that the last ATM machine in one of my wards, El Bagon, shut down because logging much as it was an environmental issue for us, it was also an economic issue. So we did not get a replacement for that. So what matters is whether the leader you elected was able to put up a law or come up with a law that protects you when you need to be protected. So we must we cannot give up. I cannot give up. I must force change if that's what it takes. Because if we don't do that, then we will just be part of the problem, because you know better, but you sit and say, it's not my problem because I'm in Nairobi and I have a good job. The people in Molo can go to hell. We can't say that we are leaders. So it is a mixture of the two. It's a mixture of leadership, and mentorship is the solution, because it is a question of you going in and telling people, this is who I am. Inspiring them and telling them this is the person I am. And for us to make a difference, we have to do things differently. It is me to tell them I'm not going to give you money. If you don't want to elect me, it's okay. I'm ready to stay here for another 3 terms. The day you decide I'm good enough, you'll give me the vote. But if I'm not going to give you any money, and I'm going to do any funny things that I don't believe or that goes against my principles. Is we leaders, because I'll give you a very good example of gyms in this country. We had an era, I'm a KANU member, I'm a KANU NEC official. We had an era of Moi, and there were challenges, and we often tell people, we're sorry, we learned, now we want to move forward. There came an era of Kibaki, and you could see the growth from 2% to 6%, border, and you could see the difference in his leadership was about hard work. There were no shortcuts. Then there's the Jubilee era. It's quite controversial, but we have a lot of challenges in the Jubilee era. And for me, I'll just single out the desperation about the youth, among the youth that keeps, you see people killing each other. That is just not, it doesn't sit well with me. I'd see people desperate, but when it comes to a point that we lynch each other, then it becomes a tragedy. So there are a lot of challenges that you find there's a lot of get rich quick in this era of Jubilee for the last few years that they've been ruling. So it's a question of the leader at the helm determines what comes down and what culture people borrow from him. So if Marianne will go to the people of Mo and refuse, give them handouts, but walk in the streets and tell them the truth that you need a good health system. If they decide I'm good enough for them, then let them elect me. But I will not make it a matter of life and death. And that is what we speak. We have a young women political leadership forum, and that's what we've decided. The day one of us decides to go and run for office, we will not do it as business as usual. If it means giving you money will give me a vote, I will not give you the money. I will not sleep my way. I'm going to do any of those funny things that people see, because I know better and want different. So it is we to use our leadership, our influence to go out there and not just mentor by words, mentor by example, by influence. And that, I believe, what will make a difference. Even if it doesn't come in my time, then well and good. Let my daughter not have to go through the kind of challenges that I see. Let me start the journey. Because if we continue with the culture that we see today, then things are just going to go bad and we'll continue with the cycle. It's not going to break. So we must break it as the leaders who have seen, us who are discussing here. The King was, the Millies, the Maliba, the Marians, who are discussing and saying there's a problem. Let's go down there and tell them that this I will not do, this I will do. And if 10 of us, 20 of us do it, who knows what that can do? So it is mentorship, and I agree, mentorship, but not just by words, by influence, by action. That will make the difference.
Such a strong point, Marianne.
In political parties, I just wanted to mention something because I cannot ignore the fact that I also represent a political party. I'm a NEC official of KANU. And I will tell you that we have, and I see some of the participants, Chepkoech, Ruth Bolo in my political party, the young women, and we try to talk to each other. And we also have some of the leadership who are very progressive, and they talk to us, they guide us. The only challenge that I feel that maybe the young people have not, and the women in general, have not been able to have a voice in the decision-making table. That is what we need to work on. But in terms of mentorship, there's little bits, not perfect, just little bits of it in our political.
On a personal level, on more like personal. Okay, that's really.
Yes.
And I really like that you've talked about political culture, because I feel as if the idealists in this country, we're always going uphill. We're like, the prevailing forces are so strong that it's like you're jumping into fire, because your ideals really will not survive in the prevailing culture. Or else, I mean, even those who have gotten elected, they get in, but what happens is that they almost get their influence, their power is not felt, because when the larger culture is full of a particular practice and a particular way of doing things, then just one single person is not enough to really change things. So yeah, you're really bringing out the idea that we need to start thinking about the concept of the political culture and what needs to be done about it, because until the political culture changes, we really will not see much change on the ground. So thank you so much for that, Marianne. So now I just want to go to our participants. And I want to remind everyone that the hashtag for Twitter is #RethinkingDemocracy. So please share that. And I'm going to read some of the comments from the participants, and then I'll read the questions that you have asked. And so I saw Caroline saying hello, everyone. Ruth said good to see Marianne, Jambi Wamolo. Kip said good to see you all. Ruth said good to see Arnold Maliba as well, a great gentleman. Samuel wished everyone a good evening. And Fanuel Kataka said great mentors show up and engage with mentees in crisis and uncertain times, even when that requires creativity and adaptation. There are several reasons not to let your commitment slide. Great being part of this. Thanks for that comment, Fanuel. And then Anne, let me see, who is this? Oh, the full name is not coming out, but Anne said we will need to really step up to change the idea of handouts in this country. Chepkoech said our political parties are community-based. That's a very good point, but it hasn't come out. It's a good reminder that our political parties are community-based and in turn run by a community demigod. They are a vehicle for elections and getting into office, not for posterity. That's such a strong point. And Chepkoech says that for us to have structured mentorship within our parties, we need to have parties based on ideology. And then we have Daisy. Daisy says she is loving the discussions. Daisy Amdani, hey Daisy. And then Peter Kiptor says, our political landscape is very hostile to the youth. The youth are used during campaigns and dumped after elections. Only a few youth with godfathers rise to national leadership. An interesting thing to note is, or rather a question might be, is godfathers and mentorship the same thing? Could it be? Mpilo asks a question particularly to Arnold Maliba. So maybe Arnold, just keep this in mind, that I would like to know how you have been able to mentor in the political space, where if you come from organizations like KAS or generally the NGO sector, you are viewed as anti-establishment. Are you able to mentor young people who go into parties with different philosophies and values? So that's a question for you, Arnold from Pilo. And then Norman says, insightful discussion. Most politicians have and work goons. That's funny. Instead of mentees. Oh my gosh. And then Daisy says that you can only start by being honest and accountable as an individual at a personal level. Someone whose title is Infinix Note 4 says, great submission from Marianne. The youth must take a stand and stay the course. Even if it takes long, it will eventually count. So, so maybe Arnold, I think that's the one question that's been asked to you. So now I'm just going to open the Q&A. Ruth Bolo asks Arnold Maliba, with your experience of recruiting from the universities, I tend to feel like there's a gap in the transition from university politics into national politics. What are your thoughts? Is this the same for you? So just keep that in mind. And then Norman has 3 questions. And I think, yeah, so Marianne, Arnold, Millie can answer. Also, Christoph, it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts. So Norman asks, a lot of young people, okay, his first question is, a lot of young people shy away from vying for elective seats because of fees that they are required to pay by the different political parties. Forgive my ignorance, but is it politically possible to have a standard amount specifically for the youth in the Parties Act? So that's his first question. The second question is, money always exchanges hands during campaign periods, and a lot of promising and honest leaders miss out because they usually don't have that money. Is it possible to criminalize money hands out? That's a very fascinating and relevant question. The third question is, from Norman still, is why do political parties nominate ex-politicians, just the letter X, who have voted out by the people, minimizing the opportunities for young people enter into the political arena, as well as grow and be mentored? Again, forgive my ignorance. Can this be addressed in the Political Parties Act to give an entry point and accommodate the aspiring youth into the political arena? I haven't fully understood that question, but I like the fact that you're grounding it, you're attempting to ground it by mentioning the act. So maybe you need to ask that question again. So I see that there's additional comments from participants. We're going to read those. But for now, Millie, Marianne, and Arnold can answer the questions that have been asked. So maybe we could actually, yes, Arnold has his hand up, so we can start with Arnold. Oh,
I would like to, first of all, I think he's called Mpilo to respond to his question about if you're going to do mentorship from with support from an organization like Conrad, there is a feeling like they are viewed negatively. The NGO space sometimes is looked at suspiciously. But then that is about the design of programs. And I would like to tell him, first of all, from a higher view, is that so long as you're engaging the public, this is contested space. If it is contested space, it means that you have to learn to negotiate. And negotiating means that you have to prove why you are doing what you're doing and actually move on with your goals because you have got goals. The truth is that the suspicion between the NGO world and government, long time died, or rather it's already dead, at least becoming finite, diminishing, for the simple reason that NGOs no longer, or rather the CSO world, the civil society world, no longer compete with government, but they complement government. So when you come out with a program like this, we are simply complementing the efforts put in by different agencies. But even political parties are agencies of government, because once they win an election, they do work on behalf of IBC. That is why a number of them get funding from government. So our own example with CAS has been that we are engaging young people on the ground. Then once we have trained them, we actually teach them. Even political education is not just about what we have been told, or rather come to think about politics being a place where there is an enemy, it's us versus them. Politics is a collaborative game that those who win then work for everybody else, and those who are out here who probably didn't get it, then are able to give support to those who are in the office for the purposes of delivering for young people. So for me, I've not had a challenge, because after all, the young people we train do their projects in the community, like going to the county assembly. If you're not going to, you're actually not going to influence policy if you are coming in from an adversarial perspective. And politics should not denote that we are only going to run for elections and it's throwing stones and throwing words. Those are adversarial things that end up on social media. So you work out, you come out and present yourself differently. And organizations have transformed. Like, for example, what CAS is doing, they're not just into developing young politicians who then are looked at as competitors to other politicians, but they are selling out the social social market economy as a concept, doing programs, different programs that build towards governance. So that is not a very big one. Ruth asks in the Q&A bar, she asks if there's a gap between universities and then the transition between the university, the place of the university, and then society, or rather mainstream leadership. And I would say that it's not just a problem with leadership alone, or rather politics alone. If you ever went to our drama festivals, you will realize that there is a glut of talent, a lot of talent, but that does not always transition to the industry. Same thing with leadership. You will actually find a lot of young people within universities and colleges who are very passionate about changing society. They are so passionate about leadership and politics, but they do not find a support mechanism that then channels them directly to the mainstream leadership. You will still find that we have got a very low layer of young people who are making it into the mainstream politics. Yes, that is a fact. And that is why then organizations like what CAS is doing. Earlier on, I mentioned an organization I used to work for, Emerging Leaders Foundation. And so many other organizations actually coming up with mentorship programs as bridges, as doing the last mile logistics, politically speaking, to channel talent, competence, people who understand and can actually transform community and bringing them into leadership. I would actually say this as I hand into another panelist to ask a question, that my perspective about leadership is that we should treat leadership like any other career. How do you get your skills as a person in whatever career you are in? It is, first of all, by training, and then how then you, from training, getting the skills and then now getting experience before you become very productive, is that there are two approaches. There's the internship, like what Christoph is doing today, understudying Dr. Yan at CAS, and then there is apprenticeship. The two ways you go about mentorship, the internship and then the apprenticeship. You learn hands-on. So we all understand what apprenticeship is. For political mentorship, it has to be largely apprenticeship, working with somebody who is already doing it or somebody who understands and doing it with you as you watch. That way, then when you are released or you are allowed to do this thing on your own, you understand the path, because like Millie actually, Honorable Millie actually mentioned, is that the political landscape is a wild one. It's a wild west. So whatever way you look at it, and it's politics, we are not going to actually get to a place where we say that political scheming, Machiavellianism, and all those games that go around politics are actually going to stop today or tomorrow. That is how we do politics, and that is how that's how it rolls. So it's for us then to bring up a critical mass of young people who are politically woke. I always talk about the 3 C's of leadership. Somebody who is caring, or rather with empathy as the first characteristic of a leader or a better politician. and somebody with a character, and then somebody who is competent. If you are not caring, you do not have a character that people can actually relate to, and you are not competent. You know, you can actually be caring, but you're not competent. I don't want to mention leaders. There are leaders whom we know they are very caring, they help us, they cry with us, but they're not competent. When you give them offices like being a governor, they lose out. So, but all these things need somebody to hold your hand. I mentioned Cyprian Nyamwamo having held my hand to just teach me what to do, how to do, and how to walk around this particular sector so that I do not step on landmines. A lot of young people show up and then they are all over, they are running everywhere. But I actually must actually admit one thing, that I love what Kanu is doing. All of us have got our ideas about Kanu, but Kanu has got this vibrant team of young people who are woke, educated, well-equipped, and people who care about this country, working within the systems of Kanu. I don't think with my interaction, because I've actually worked for both Jubilee and I've actually been in ODM, I do not think that from what I have seen from Kanu, these other organizations are actually doing it. They're not doing that. I think Kanu is focused about tomorrow, and that should really worry the rest of us who either are thinking about registering parties or are actually in other parties. I think there is an element of mentorship that is working in Kanu that ODM will learn from it, Jubilee will learn from it, because these other parties are actually assuming that somehow we will actually just get leaders coming in. Yes, we will, because nature abhors a vacuum. So there will be leaders, but they might not be the kind of leaders we want, the quality leaders we want. Over to you, Kiwa.
Thank you so much, Arnold. And this is, I mean, the 3 C's: caring, character, competence. Someone would almost laugh when to even talk about caring in our current political framework, which is very much about, it's very brutal and very, yeah, like you said, Machiavellian, but I really like this. And I think it points to, like, as Marianne also talked about, the need for a new political culture where we are overtly saying that, you know what, we need a country where people actually, a government that cares, a government that puts people first. And I think the fact of the way we were founded as a country, our government, which still is similar, the system that, and the mindset, the philosophy of looking at Kenya as a place of extraction rather than a place of giving and nurturing the people within it. I think that's one of the key things that that really needs to be worked on and looked at for the future. So now it'd be interesting to hear Millie, and especially some of the questions that have come up have been questions of money in politics, especially for younger people. Also, just I want to jump and say this, Maliba, I really like that you talked about the need to look at leadership as a profession, because that then gives it more structure. But sorry, just to come back to Millie. So Millie, it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts, because you are a people person, you are humane, and that's why you have a big following, that you're very real. You're a politician, you're elected, but you're very real. Power hasn't got into your head. You don't have you've kept your humanity. So how have you managed to balance that issue of keeping your humanity, but at the same time surviving the politics, playing the game, especially in the money aspect? That's one question that's come out. If you'd be happy to answer that. Hello, Millie.
I want to say, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I want to say that what has kept me going is being grounded on values. And other than just the fact that we should treat politics as another profession, I think what I could say is we should professionalize politics. And the way you professionalize politics is that people need to understand that for you to get into politics, it's a vocation. It's not just like the way, you know, there are certain jobs that are like a vocation, like nursing, like, you know, medical, being a doctor, being a politician. They should be in this. They should be in the same level, but we have dehumanized politics, because politics is about serving. It's not about lording over people. It's about serving. But the problem is, and even though I know politics is also about power, but power shouldn't be the end game in politics. It should be about power, but it should be about compassion. It should be about people. It's about feeling and touching the lives of people. Are we still together? Can you hear me still?
Together. We do. We can. I'm just muting myself, but go ahead.
Yes. So if you're, and part of the things when I actually mentor, it's part of the things that we train about. It's about self-confidence. It's about being confident in who you are.
Wow.
And if you are confident in who you are, then you get into a space, a public space, without any apologies, because I don't have to look back and apologize to everybody about who they think I ought to be, because I'm coming in when I'm already grounded in who I am. So part of our training in mentorship is training young women to be grounded in who they are, and also to be grounded in values. You must have a value system that you're grounded on, that is not based on other people's values, so that I don't have to refer to you. I don't have to look at my back if I'm pleasing you, so long as I'm grounded on those values and on the law. And then maybe the other issue that I want to talk about is, somebody asked the question about whether we can criminalize the giving of money in politics, especially during election time.
Yes.
That was there as an election offense. And it was an election offense called treating. But then it turned out, I think when we were in the 10th Parliament, the argument was that everybody ended up treating, because if you don't pay people money, you are not going to be elected. So people will just tell you, are you sure? Are you sure you are in politics? Are you serious about being in politics? So we said then the law was amended to allow people to give money, but as an allowance. But it still comes to the same thing, because the person with more money then gets to influence more people. So it's one of those difficult situations that as a country, we must be able to deal with. I think there's somebody else who asked a question about whether we can amend the Political Party Act, so that parties can charge the same amount for young people. I think that's a good idea, and it's something that it's worth working on. I know in the last elections, I supported several women.
Oh, wow.
And the challenge for most of the women was that they would reach a point, and then they can't go forward, especially when they were going through the appeal process in the party, when the processes didn't go well for them.
Oh, wow.
And then it would reach a level when I could not go any further with them, because then it also overwhelms me financially. So I know a lot of very strong women who fell off because they couldn't raise money just for an appeal process within their own parties.
Wow.
So because of that, I know our party also waived the costs for women. But then the information came in a little too late, like I was helping so many women raise money. Then I am in the party, but I was learning very late that there was a waiver.
Okay.
So I think those are some of the things that we can stipulate by law, so that it becomes easier for young people to engage in politics.
Yeah. Those are really good points. And actually, Maliba mentioned your mentorship program, and I think it would be good to hear more about it. So maybe you could say some more about it, so that some of the participants can join in. I'm seeing some people already asking what are the programs. So maybe you could say more about your program. And
okay, the program is called the program. We undertake the mentorship program in the Miley Institute, which is the Maiden Institute for Leadership, Law, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship. And one of the programs we run in the Miley Institute is a leadership academy.
Wow.
And in the leadership academy, we train young people. Primarily, we focus on women, but sometimes men come in. But primarily, my focus was on women because of what I went through.
Wow.
And so what we do is we actually have a structured program, and I've developed a book and I've developed a curriculum for training people based on my experience. So it's actually a practical training. It's a practical training that tells you, you know, what you're likely to face when you're going to campaign.
Yes.
What sort of strategies you need to employ, what sort of networks you need to have, and what I call real politics. So a whole chapter 2 is dedicated to real politics, or the politics of the school of hard knocks, where you come in and you have the constitution and you have the law, but when you get to the ground, people put it aside, and people are running with ballot papers. We train you about what you need to do, or people when they are attacking you, you know, physically, how do you deal with that sort of thing?
Wow.
Yeah,
so it's beyond theory. It's very much on the ground. Huh?
Yes.
And when is the next intake for those who would want to? Okay, first of all, where can they find out more information, and when is the next intake?
Oh, I'm getting off network.
All right, so maybe, hello, Millie. Okay, so Millie will probably join us, but in the meantime, if you're listening in, I'm sure if you go online and search for the Millie Institute, you'll find out more about it. So it's really good that she's given us that information. So we are almost coming to the end, but Marianne hasn't, we need to have Marianne give her feedback on the comments that have been given, as well as the questions that have been asked. So yes.
Okay, so I think I wanted to comment on the first one, sorry, the first one and the second one. On the first question, it was about, and this is Norman's question. I don't know whether Maliba answered the question that Truth had asked about. Okay, I think you did. Yeah, so on the young people shying away from vying for elective seat because of money, it is true. And one of the things that at this point, and maybe Mheshimiwa has actually talked in length about it, is people need to understand that politics is a logistical, it's heavy on logistics, and financials will be used. And even Mheshimiwa said that you cannot go entirely without anything. You must have some money. How, and she mentioned that mentorship now comes in to help you on how you can pace yourself. So that if, and I will give an example with, I ran against someone who'd run 4 times, a former MP of Molo in 2002. And this was the 4th time he was running. And he told me, I wish I knew you before, I would have advised you a few things. And one of the things he told me, and he's a man, and he told me that, Marianne, whenever I come into politics, I set aside a certain amount. He's a lawyer. So he works for a certain amount of money, and he says, this will be the money I will use for politics. Then he has his own money, family money that he doesn't touch. So whatever money that he's able to accumulate in those 5 years before he runs for office is what he will use. And if it is 1 million, then it is that 1 million. If that money is not enough to hire cars, then he will go on foot and talk to people. And it is because you need a little loose change for even if assuming you are going with your only 1 car to Mashinani, because most of us don't run in Nairobi, you'll have to put fuel in that car and go there. There are people who will be forced to work for you fully, and they will be forced, you will have to have an extra amount of money to have them on your payroll, because cobblers, and they make maybe 200 shillings a day, and they need to feed their families. So they can't just be working for you and have 0 to take back home, because they live from hand to mouth. So you cannot entirely work without money. And that's why Mheshimiwa Milly was saying, the idea is to be mentored on how you pace yourself. And then on the fees, most parties last time, they subsidized for people. And I think that was a great gesture. And as Mheshimiwa said, that getting a standard amount for youth is something they could look at in Bunge. And then money is always exchange hands during campaigns period. Yeah, I think she talked about it. And for me here, I cannot fail to push my agenda, because as a leader, you have to have your own stand. And my stand is, I ran for office and I spent 6 million Kenyan shillings. It didn't earn me. I didn't feel like I'd made a great impact with the money. Maybe I used it wrongly. I don't know. People will say different things. And maybe when I look in retrospect, how I paced myself was not that good. But I spent 6 million Kenya shilling, and that's the I spent. So it's not just something I'm picking from my mind. However, I know that maybe that was not my style. I did it like every other person. And I told myself, next time I'll do it my way. And I like what Mheshimiwa said, that you have to be yourself. I know there's a 0.1% or 1% of Kenyans, and I say it all the time. Show me 5 people who won elections without money. I'll show you 100 who failed because they did not have money. And that's a fact. But now my goal is to make sure that that 0.1% who win without spending a lot of money or unnecessarily spending and dishing money increases. Even if as leaders we can push it to 5%, then that will be progress. If in the next election you push it by 0.5% and it's 5.5, that is progress. So I know, and I will tell this to leaders who want to go into politics, is that you need resources. Let that resource be for logistics. But where we have to go to all harambes, all weddings, every child is out of school, it is up to us. I mean, that is not the role of, for example, an MP. The role of an MP is to legislate, to represent, and to oversight. If I'm doing all these other things, then I'll be going to be a broker in the parliament to see which Chinese firm is bringing in the biggest deal so that I can get 100 million and I get my group of 10 brokers in parliament. We know Kingwa, if we give them 40, they'll vote with us. That's what parliament MPs go to do sometimes. Because
that's a reality.
They have to raise the money. So this person should actually be representing you, but they are uko broking in parliament. And by the way, politicians are not rich people, but we have the notion that they are. So some of us, Mary Ann has to stand and show people that we're actually not rich. I have a 6-year-old who needs me to put up a house for her. Will I do that and still give you money and come to all your harambes and weddings? I will not do that. And if I do that, that will mean there's a chance I'll be corrupt. And I don't want to be corrupt. So I have to come, stand and tell you, my agenda is this, and you look at my passion. And I got that a lot, Kingwa. I told people, and they told me, Marianne, your agenda is so good. You're very good with a microphone, but you don't have money. So tomorrow, that will not freak me out again. Previously, it made me feel small. This time, I will have a comeback with that, for that. And that is what, for me, mentorship is all about. And I will listen to people like Milly, to what exactly they said about how do I, when people tell me about money, how do I turn the story to something else? And if it doesn't get me to parliament that year, at least I will have influenced another 5,000 people in my constituency. Then the next term again, I will run, and you do it until you can do it. Even if you never get, someone was elected after many years of running. People do that a lot, but pace yourself. Let it not be a matter of life and death. And for me, I will tell young people, we might not change the culture of handouts. Not today. Change is very gradual. Change is very slow, painfully slow. But at the end of the day, we must believe in what we believe in. If I go to parliament and I become like any other person or the next person, and I don't have a problem with people being who they are, just be you. But if Marianne is about ideals and values and culture change, then let Marianne be about ideals and values and culture change. And I think that way we will be able to move forward. And mentorship is very important for all of us. I've seen a few people just talking about, yeah, political mentorship, Marianne. I do it. I talk to people. I can talk to you on phone even right now. And maybe Kingwa, the topic of the day was mentorship in times of crisis. This crisis is really a very good opportunity. I've taken it myself to try and convince people that our country was not moving in the right direction. And God is conspiring to make us think, rethink, redefine our strategy about this country. So I will try to push my agenda in the way that I know best. I will speak to people in the know that I know best, in the way I know best. And hope, after all, hope is what keeps us going on, that one day something will change. There's a man who said that God give me Ireland or I'll die, and God gave him. So even me, I can say, God give me Kenya or I'll die, and I'll be given Kenya. Who says it is not possible?
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. And it's good that you brought out the relationship between corruption, the grand corruption that we read about, the billions, and the fact of handouts in our political culture. Like, I think people don't see the relationship, like they don't seem to recognize that. Well, and of course, maybe it might be a bit too much, especially in the, that's giving people too much of an excuse. Because when people are disturbing politicians to give them handouts, they need to ask themselves, where is this money coming from? So for me, anytime I see people getting angry about, the politicians are asking for more money for their salaries, I'm like, but where do you think money for the next handouts you're gonna ask for is gonna come from? So for me, I'm actually I have no patience for people complaining about MPs getting added their salaries and that kind of thing, because there is a very strong connection. It's a cycle, and until we understand it, we just keep on playing with ourselves. So we have about 14 minutes. I'm going to read out first of all, thanks for the feedback from Arnold and Millie and Marianne. So we have 14 minutes. I'm going to read some of the comments from the participants and some of the questions. We probably will not be able to go into the answers well enough, but I'll just read them out so we see what interesting discussions have been going on from the participants. So, I think the last comment we had read was from Marvin Wamukota asks, can we attain democracy without an election? Zablon Mogesi says, as youths, we need to go for our space. No one will give us a space. We have to fight for it. Mike Kisa says, great submission from Marianne. The youth must take a stand and stay the course, even if it takes long. It will eventually count. Stephen Irungu says the problem with Kenyan politicians, mostly here in central Kenya, they never want to see young people thriving. They'll make sure you're pulled down till you give up. Then Martha Nyamu says, I feel as though the political journey for any aspirant needs to be so much more than just showing up. Participation from a grassroots level and engaging communities is where the work should begin. I honestly believe the work and impact you do on the ground should speak for you during the campaign period rather than money and handouts. Yes, that's a very good point. Zebi Nyakianga says, I feel we need more authentic, more action and sustainable mentorship for the young people. Wendy asks, what should young people do differently this coming election? I love the discussion. And then Viv, I'm not seeing the full name, but says, particularly glad to see all the panelists, such a power team. Thank you. As we move into this decade with the old conventions giving way and new challenges threatening our collective survival, how can we inculcate a mindset that the new epoch shall be authored by the ordinary citizens in forgotten corners, but not the politicals in the city? It's a very, very powerful question. And Martha Nyamu again says, politics and mentorship should be about real work, and active participation on the ground. The challenge we are having now is that we have elected officials who won't even bother to turn up to public participation forums, but send their PAs. It's another strong point. And then Norman gives a point from Meshach Odede from his shared link. And Meshach says, I would like to get the perspective of the panel on the patience of the youth while learning or being mentored. Mzalendo Mulingwa Garang, Mzalendo, he says great conversations. Shikonyamo says, I really agree with what Marianne has shared in terms of pacing oneself. We have a culture where someone begins the political journey a year before, it can get hectic. Jembe Hussein Jembe says, enjoying the session, I would like to connect to Marianne Jambi on the political mentorship. Ruth says, thank you, Arnold. Kanu loves and welcomes you to the party. So Arnold, you are being welcomed. I think this Peter says, thank you. Oh, says Maliba, thank you for complimenting our Kanu team. We remain focused. And then Eric says, great panelists, a lot to learn from the unique experiences. My question, what happens when your mentor decides to cannibalize their mentees for deeming them as competitors? Look at counties, constituencies, wards, and even presidency. Anytime you seem to make headway, you have to be dealt with in quotes. And then Peter says, preach, Marianne. Chepkoech says, Marianne, I'm a direct beneficiary of your mentorship. You make me proud and Kani is proud of you. Oh, that's so sweet. Then Chatia Boyele says, our problem with Kenya is not politicians, but our characters as individuals. Funnel says, Maliba is a great inspiration, well celebrated. Mike Kisa says, I don't think there can be democracy without elections, but real democracy happens when the electorate is informed. And then one of the last comment is from Chatia is, politicians cropped from the citizenry. Our moral fabric is obliterated completely. We need to work on our characters as citizens of our country. The only reason people want leadership is to have a chance to eat. A new comment that has come up is from Vivo. Can I have the honor of being a mentee to Honorable Millie? And then Mike Kisa asked Maliba how best establish partnership. Caroline asks which method should be used to make sure that the youths are mentored to be good leaders. Fanuel has this for Marianne Jambi. I would really want to know how she has maneuvered in this political space, as she says, without compromising her morals and what she believes in. Because we all know what women go through in this space before attaining such heights. It is always believed that there is silent man mentee behind every successful woman in political space. She sounds admirably very different. She should share her experience. So thanks, participants, for these questions. So I'm going to give the chance to Arnold and Marianne to answer, but also as they give their closing remarks. So about 3 minutes each.
So just before I do my final remarks, I'd like just to point out that probably it's time we told young people and everybody out there that we stop moralizing politics and professionalize it, so that all of us, the players and the people who are in our different sectors, because again, politics is not just about the big ballers, the politicians and everybody else there. It's also about the voters. It's about you people who help them, who organize for them, the gatekeepers, the people who work around that. So perhaps when you talk about values, then that becomes a very elastic discussion, because then what are morals? It can actually be very relative depending on who you are, your religious persuasions and everything around that. So perhaps we move away from moralizing politics and then just professionalize our politics, because then you know what is required of you. You respond to it. Regardless of what you pray to, what you face, what are your sexual orientations or anything, that will be different. So I really need to point out that somebody spoke about how do you build capacity. And I think that's, Mike Kisa, building capacity. You will have to learn. This is one thing young people must actually put it at heart, that sometimes you like to think that you know, until you get to the field and realize that there are people who might not necessarily look as brilliant as you think, but they are smarter than you. There are people on the ground who understand and they know the ground much better than you. Politics is a team sport. There is no a lone wolf here. There is no lone ranger tactics. You can't pull through. You will learn people's skills. You will have to learn to talk with other people. That is why I actually still insist that for politics, you have to learn. I need to actually finalize by saying this, that these are the benefits of political mentorship. And there are not many, by the way, there are just 3. For mentees, number 1 is that you then develop political identity. And when you talk about political identity, we all don't like the kind of politics we have. You hear people mentioning about bribes and fighting.
I'm going to ask you to fast forward kidogo.
Yeah. Yeah, so political identity for a young person, you want to identify yourself with progressive politics, look for a progressive mentor. The other bit is political confidence. All of us have got, it's like we know everybody loves to sing in the bathroom until you come outside here and you realize you can't sing well. And finally, for mentors, by the way, when you mentor other people, you gain much more. You get insight, you get knowledge, you get to know things you will never have known. So clearly, if you actually embrace mentorship, both as a mentor and a mentee, all of us are actually good.
So Maliba, I'm gonna give it to the platform to Marianne. Thank you so much for those thoughts, but I just want to have Marianne say something. We'll come back to you for like a 30-minute last words.
Okay, so I'll answer 2 questions that I think I got. One is what someone asked, what should young people do differently in the next election? And I will go for authenticity. Know what you want. At the end of the day, don't move with the euphoria. You need to know when the rubber meets the road, what is it that you really, 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 really are looking for in a leader? Vote wisely. Don't stand in awe of leaders. Ask those leaders difficult questions. Even if you do it alone, it's okay. You don't have to do it, all of us. Gitobu Manyara Mheshimiwa once told me that, Marianne, there was only one Abraham Lincoln. Marianne, there was one Martin Luther King Jr. Leadership is individual. So if you're a young person and you want to bring a change in the next general election, know exactly what you want, be authentic. Then if it is in leadership, be mentored to know exactly how the game works, but now find a way to bring yourself and your authenticity in the game. Secondly, someone asked how it's not been easy. Trust me, in politics, Fanaka, you're tested beyond measures. Your faith, your morality, everything is just tested. And I wouldn't say that, I wouldn't take it past, I'm a believer. And I never shy to say that. I wouldn't take it past my God that I stood, because I have the fear of God in me. So there are things that I shun, I stop doing. Not that I can do it, trust me, I can do it, but I tell myself this is not the way. This is not Marianne. And I always tell myself that I don't want to be the Marianne that the world creates. I want to be the Marianne that God created. That way I'll be able to achieve my purposes and dreams. So I'm a hard worker. I worked very hard in Jubilee. Nobody saw it. Then someone by chance gave me a chance to go to KANU. I worked hard and someone saw it. So I believe that when you stay true to the cause, someone will see it. So that's exactly my story. It's not unique. It's not grand. It's just take the course and someone noticed. It didn't happen the first time, but someone noticed. And luckily, the ladies in KANU will tell you, I tell them that there are things you'll not come and do in KANU. By the time you're coming to hit on women in KANU, you have to pass through me. I'm the Secretary of Women, KANU Women Congress. I sit in the neck and I tell people, those funny things you do in politics, don't come and do them to the women in KANU. So, all right.
Your last word, your last sentence, parting shots.
We need to change our culture. We need to change the culture, the political culture in this country. It has, because much as the game has got its rules, yes, much as the game has got its rules, even number 2 get a small trophy. Kenyans are getting nothing. The winners are going with everything. Kenyans are getting nothing. And that
I love it. Thank you so much. I love your passion. Like when I'm low, I feel inspired. Arnold Maliba, last words, parting shots.
A lady called Margaret Mead says that children must be taught what to think, must be taught how to think, not what to think. I'm going to actually paraphrase that and say that political mentorship is actually to help you know how to do politics and not what Yeah, as in, so political mentorship is to help you do politics, not to teach you the kind of politics to do.
I love that. Thank you so much. And I just want to thank everyone that's been part of this discussion. I want to thank you, Marianne. I want to thank you, Arnold. I want to thank Millie for being part of this and being so very open and very generous with your thoughts. Thank you also to our participants for just being very engaged and asking really good questions. Questions are really, I mean, I feel so happy that there are people that are really thinking on that level. I just want to let you know that so this is the first in the series, in the Rethinking Democracy series. Next week, we are going to be discussing active citizenship, and we'll be joined by the governor of Makueni, Kibusa Kibwana, human rights defender and member of Ukweli Party, Editor Ochieng, and tentatively, although he hasn't confirmed, Irungu Houghton. So for now, I will just thank you all and let you know that I look at this as the beginning of something big, and I think let's stay the course. And I didn't even introduce myself in the beginning. My name is Kingwa Kamenchu, and I've been very happy to be part of this. Thank you so much, Conrad Adenwa, for hosting these kinds of discussion and what you're doing towards and so these are part of something that's happening later on, a conference, the annual democracy conference. But now I'll just hand over to Christoph. If he has more news about that, he'll let us know. But thank you so much, and over to you, Christoph.
Thank you, Kingwa. And thank you all in front of your several devices for joining us for the last 2 hours. It was a pleasure. We hope to continue with this engaging participant in this engaging format. So hopefully see you all back next week, as Kingwa said. We try to work on it. I mean, this was our second try tonight. So every time we try to get a little bit better, a little bit more engaging. So tune in next week as well. I think the topics are exciting, the discussions are vivid, and we are happy to have the opportunity to well, make the best out of the time with the curfews and everything that's going on right now, and try to make the best of it. So thank you all again for joining. Keep safe, and then hopefully I'll see you, or we see you again next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.